Am I the meanest?
Sure enough.
Am I the prettiest?
Sure enough.
Am I the baddest mofo low down around this town?
Sure enough.
Well, who am I?
Sure enough.
Who am I?
Sure enough.
I can't hear you.
Sure enough.
You're now listening to
Teleocontos. What's up, folks? How are you today? You're now live with Uncle Phil. Live. I love it. Hey, folks, happy Wednesday. Ancestrylands, ancestrylands.com, folks. Happy Wednesday. Folks, make sure you can tell me if you can hear me out there in the chat. I want to make sure my audio is good. We're going to do a little sound check real quick. How's everyone's week going? Middle of the week, hump day, hump week. We have, let me make sure. Yeah, we can hear me. Okay, great. All right, cool. Excellent. Um, I can hear myself on Facebook. We are streaming live to Facebook, YouTube, and my personal Facebook profile for all the people who don't follow me on my Ancestry Lands business page. Folks, we Wednesday, my energy's pretty steady. Had a good workout today, this morning, a nice cardio workout. My son had his 6-month appointment, although he is a little bit older than 6 months, but still, he's had his 6 months appointment. You might be looking at the thumbnails and wondering, what's going on. I thought to put some of the topics that I think are a little bit more important that I don't want you to miss on the thumbnails. That we are going to get to that topic with the prawns. That I'm going to call it prawn, but you see how it's spelled in the thumbnail. That actually is a real story we are going to cover today. We have quite a bit of things to talk about this Wednesday. More news about good news and some bad news, as you know. There is a lot of developments happening in the world. I did want to include one of our main stories about the Wheel of Fortune show. If you don't know, the Wheel of Fortune show with the host Pat Sajak, he seems to have lost his mind, or maybe this was staged, and we'll get right into that story now. We got, so I'm going to cover what we're going to talk about. Okay. We're going to talk about a male athlete that wins, a transgender athlete that wins women's cycling race in New York City. And as you know from my previous post that I've covered before in my different lives, I support transgender athletes competing in women's sports because I feel that women have accepted the movement, then they should get all the outcomes that come with it. I am very much like that. I do believe that we get what we ask for in life, and this should be no different. That and now they're calling a male athlete, although it's a transgender woman specifically, because if it's a transgender woman, then it should be considered a woman. So I'm going to go ahead and play the game as they play it too as well. And women stood behind this in mass and big numbers, and I stand behind it as well because I want to see the transgenders take over all of women's sports. And women now have to stand up and fight back and earn. Now it's not the patriarchy, it's the now new matriarchy of the transgender movement. And I think that's fair. I think that's a good level set starting, because right now men are blamed for everything that we've done up till now. Men have been blamed for guiding us into what is now the technological age where women have more rights, more outcomes, more degrees, more individual power, and what they do with it is their prerogative. And now we're seeing the results of this with women's empowerment and where it's headed. They've other groups have co-opted their movements because they've allowed other groups in. And I think that the movement of women's rights has now been kind of widened about what is the actual things that women were looking for. And this goes along with it, this male athlete. We're going to cover that too. I am going to cover something that's a little bit more serious that most people may not know about, and this is going to be to every taxpayer about the current President Biden. His DOJ, or Department of Justice, is quietly trying to orchestrate tax-funded bailout of Moderna, according to Fox News. We're going to get into that story too as well. An anti-PORN bill in 8 states could force device makers to censor really explicit material on certain devices and Apple's and other Samsung devices. So, we're going to talk about whether that's a good thing or not. In other news, there's in San Francisco, which I just came from actually a few weeks ago. Roaming mobs of teens clash in San Francisco mall brawl as bystanders get caught in the crosshair. That's right, you're out there looking for your Dolce and Gabbana bags. Your malls have a very empty nowadays, and teens seem that that's a good place to stomp each other's ears out, folks. Give each other crescent kicks and roundhouses, and that's what they're doing there. So if you're going to the mall, you might want to be keep your head on a swivel, because apparently some innocent bystanders got caught in the crosshairs of these mobs of teenagers clashing in the San Francisco mall, and we will show you the video. We do have video footage of that. In other lighter news, in Australia, the new species of giant spider discovered hiding underground in Australia, experts say. And also, I do believe that cheetahs are being reintroduced back into India. You may not know this, but cheetahs once roamed the land of India, and it became extinct native Indian cheetahs in 1952, and they are now being reintroduced, and we're going to cover that story. Folks, how can I say this? I'll tell you all this, that as we're going through life, um, young men in particular, and one thing that I think is a disservice is older men, older mentors looking at younger men and trying to always equate experience for qualifying, or life experience for qualifying you to be the master of knowledge when you're talking to a young person. And what I mean by that in particular is that a lot of older people, even such as myself, when you're talking to 20-year-olds, when you're talking down to a 20-year-old, and yeah, they don't have life experience, but that does not mean they're not intelligent. A 22-year-old that has served in the military, that has traveled the world, or has had life experience, does not disqualify them from having their own mind. I'm very careful with this when I talk to my nephew who's in his early 20s. I don't speak to him as if he's a child, even though he technically could be my child, as far as age is concerned. The talking to a younger person, when you're speaking to them, you have to understand, as an older person, when you're mentoring someone, what is your end goal? Is your end goal to talk to them, to get them to follow or listen to your counsel? Because that's what you're doing. You're counseling them in the form of giving them mentorship and guidance. But when you expect them to just follow what you say purely because you say it, that doesn't leave room for the individuality of the young person. The young person's not going to listen to that just because you say it and you're speaking from life advice. You have to be able to speak to younger people with their wants and needs in mind. A younger person is not going to sacrifice in the same way a person who's 40 or 60 or 50 would, because we have a little bit more life experience. Sometimes younger people need to develop, grow, mature to get to a point where they can understand and embody some of the teachings that are beyond their years at that time. That doesn't mean that you don't teach them or you mention that knowledge to them, but passing it down with the expectation that they will commit to it and perform it. I think that's a disservice that you do to younger people. And you have to be careful, because you can turn a young person off with strict hardline advice to follow, and there's no room for their individuality. I've now taken on, or I'm have orienting to new graphic designers within my business, and we talked about that last week, about the graphic designers that I'm bringing on into the business, because again, the a person dictates how you treat them. I'm going to take a little bit more water because I don't want to get dry mouth during this podcast or this broadcast. When your work ethic or your work, you know, input shows me a lot about a person. It shows me their 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 ability to perform. And a lot of times people will perform at only the level to which they're expected to just do a job. Well, that gives you short-term outcomes. It doesn't give you long-term benefits. When you're working with a company, as a graphic designer, I've talked to a lot of graphic designers, and I tell them I always leave room for them to have some artistic expression. What I've learned meeting most graphic designers, when you do have graphic designers in your business, most of the graphic designers are used to just doing template-based businesses. They do template-based projects. If you see 4 or 5 real estate companies, they'll tend to all look the same in the way they present properties because literally someone's copying another person's work and doing certain differences to the original work. And then what you have now is a whole industry of people who are creating variations of people who don't have any originality. And that's where AI is starting to change up graphic design on a whole because soon AI will be able to do the job of graphic designers, and graphic designers should be aware of that because once AI can do template variations just like they can, realistically what the benefit of a graphic designer is their creativity to make something that you can think of, visualize. They can make that into an actual something that's visible to an end user, to a person that is going on your website or your place of business. As a business owner, you have to challenge your employees to be creative, not without, and give them parameters, but leave room for artistic expression. One of the things that I think is a benefit to when people work with me is that I always try to leave an input for them to, have an opinion, having a voice. When I say having a voice, is a voice or opinion of value, something that can add value to a business. And that should go the same for when you have people in your family or people in your relationships, or you're going to cohabitate. You don't want people to just make decisions because they're in a position of authority. You need to have, what I call desired outcomes or measurable results. And a lot of people don't like that because when you actually use measurable results or measurable outcomes that show whether something is beneficial or not, what happens is people are used to just templating, giving out ideas, but never putting them to work. They're not used to making something that they think of equate to something that's successful. And when that happens, people get frustrated because now that they have to show results that match their ideas that should lead to a desirable outcome, they get frustrated because they know they won't do that work, that middle ground, the front to end to make it happen. People are always short on that part. That's what I call the legwork. People are great on ideas, short on legworks, and half-assing on results, or they completely fail at results. And that's why you have to toe that line if you're really serious about getting somewhere in life. Because a lot of the information I see online, they don't particularly talk about that component. When you're a business owner or a person that is trying to grow somewhere in business, part of that journey is people taking you off that path. That's life way of testing your resolve. Meaning, are you dedicated to getting through the end? Anyone who thinks that it's a straight line or a downhill, it's going to be easy ride to get to that destination, I'm going to say you probably have never been successful. Success is a mountain like Kilimanjaro, Mount Fuji. It requires the oxygen's thin at the top for success. So you got to have the lung and the willpower because along the way, the feeling of wanting to quit should be expected. It being hard, being, success not being visible or within your grasp, the failure when you're trying to be successful, failure always rides your back until you get to success. Then it has to get off. But it literally rides your back until you get across the finish line because success is an area that you've achieved something that is a desired outcome or it's a measurable outcome. Everything up before that is Failure's at your back, and everything in front of you is just progress. You can fail even right before you cross the finish line. We've seen that in track sports or anything else where someone almost wins, but they lose at the last minute. Game buzzer, three-pointer thrown. We've seen Steph Curry do stuff like that. You've seen in track meets someone inches over by a chest, they win by a hair. You've seen people who, they thought they had the highest score, and then someone, throws a Hail Mary and they win in football. And that's the game winner. The heartbreak loss. You can lose at the last minute, right before you're about to cross the finish line. That means that everything that is in front of you is progress until you become successful. And everything behind you is how many times you have not failed, because you're still, that's all that's all the measurements, how you progressed, where failure could have been, but failure's still right on your back. And people don't understand that. And I don't see people talking about that, because when you go into a business or a journey towards success, whatever that may be, you should always know that that weight that you carry, that's failure. Failure's always on your back, whispering, telling you, I'm going to try to make your job much harder. On the road are obstacles for you to overcome. There are hurdles in your way. Hurdles may be the form of a wife, or an obstacle may be form of a wife, a parent, family members, children, anything else. They're always there to put in your way to see if you're dedicated towards your journey to be successful. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices in order to achieve that success. Does that mean that you can't be married? Absolutely not. But sometimes you have to sacrifice making someone else happy so you can continue to be successful. What people misunderstand about the road to success is that people think because you're traveling on the road, that means you're automatically happy. The journey to success is hard, it's stressful, it wears you down mentally, physically, and emotionally. What the people around you fail to realize is the struggle you're going through, even if you don't show it, even if you appear strong, happy. They don't understand that sometimes the struggle is in your head, sometimes the struggle is in your body. Where even my father said during the on the road with Uncle Phil, he could see how tired I was in my eyes. That's where you could physically see the struggle of me trying to be successful. And other times it's mental, like the days where I did not broadcast when I came back upon my journey. That's where I'm mentally exhausted. And then sometimes it's spiritual, your spirit, your emotions, where you're stressed out and you don't have any energy in the tank. And sometimes that's where a person beside you can fill you up with emotionality, that is spiritual replenishing. For a woman, I don't know what a woman's needs are in that spiritual refillment. A lot of people may not be spiritual, but I am a person who requires spiritual refillment as well as emotional refillment and physical replenishing of energy in all forms. A lot of times people are very, what I call, they tend to do hostage situations when it comes to fulfilling these needs. When people are benefiting from your efforts, they tend to, what I call, itemize the benefits. They understand that if you were not there in their life in totality, the life would be markedly different, where they couldn't produce the same results with you being leading the ship. But a lot of times, because that requires them to do more, they tend to itemize the benefits that they receive, meaning that, well, I don't get anything directly. Well, the lifestyle you live is a direct benefit from that. And again, they time to cherry pick what benefits they do get. The leader person who's dedicated and focused to that, you can get bogged down arguing with that person over the benefits. You can, because in your mind, you're trying to prove what you do and how people benefit from it. The problem is you're talking to a person who does not appreciate the benefits that you bring in a whole. and you're forced to make a decision. Many of us have a hard time making that decision because there are sacrifices that have to be made. There are things you'll lose in order to make those sacrifices. But that's what a sacrifice is. It's a loss. You have to something you can't gain. You have to give it up. And it's not something that can be easily done in one day. It's a process. But what you have to understand is that if you're not willing to make that sacrifice, eventually you are going to be fail before you get to the end of that journey. In order to be successful, you have to have some form of support. There is no person on this earth that is had no support and made it. I mean, no one was there to support them. A person may not have had support for a period of their journey, but what they tend to do is miss the people that have been supporting them along the way on their journey. Support is not a long, everlasting cycle of you just get continuous support. Support is something that comes in periods where, like the footprints, the I don't know if that's a poem, whatever else, but there's two footprints in the sand, and there's one footprint, and a person thinks that in the story, this is God is walking with a person, and they look back on the beach and they see sometimes on the road there were two footprints, and the set of stands theirs and God, and then and other times there's one footprint in the sand, just 2 feet. And they say, God, that's not where you were walking with me. And God says, no, that's the times I carried you. And what that's supposed to tell you is that there are people who carry you sometimes to that next point. And what happens is God carries you and then he continuously walks with you. And what you see is a lot of times is people, not saying a person is God, but the person who's supporting you, they continuously walk with you on that journey. Those are not your one set of footprints. That's the time where you could not make it to that point. And the reason why that story exists, at least in my opinion, is to remind us to never forget the times where there are one footprint in the sand. There is some points where you can walk alone, and there are other points where you need to be carried to the next point in life. But if you don't have a person that can carry you to the next point, your journey stops. And a lot of times people are they have a lot of hubris or arrogance where they feel like they don't understand that you're never doing it alone. You're never doing it alone. Never. There are always people around you that are supporting you when you're on your journey. The problem is that people don't know how to identify when they're being supported. And then they also can get the support, but don't return and give the support when it is their time to give in the same way that they receive. The sign of a selfish person, which you should always identify, is someone that has no problem taking from you, but has a bigger problem when they have to give you back. I said that before with the story of Alexander's mutiny at the Opus, where he talked about who can say they've done more for me than I have for them. And I think that is a powerful statement when you go to evaluate your relationships with people and you ask a person, can you say you've done more for me than I have done for you? And that lets you know how well a person can give. Now, again, there are some separations with this because a parent should probably never say that to a child. A child can never give a parent what a parent can give to a child because a child is brought into the world. But as you get older and you start to have friends, you have people in your circle, you have coaches, you have people who are supporting you on your journey to become who you are. The question you should always ask is, can you say you are giving me more than I have given you? And I would also follow that up is I would say, would you say you've taken more from me than I have taken from you? And I think that if a person can't answer that honestly, that automatically tells you who you're with. I think that's a great identifier for when you're being used or not taken advantage of, or a person is not appreciating you. Because if they did, they would be able to qualify that statement. A lot of people say you should never do that. And the reason why I think that is that that is to never bring to light the value of what people are bringing into a relationship. But yet, when we work for any business, we're always evaluated on our contribution to the business as a whole. There it matters when we take, and we accept that in our work life. But in our personal lives, we don't accept that. We kind of glorify what we do and we don't actually look at what we do and say, here is the worth of what I bring to the table. Here is what it is that I bring to the table. And the more generalized or idealistic that the what you bring to the table is, it probably means that the value of it's very small. For instance, if a woman says or a man says, well, I bring good sex to the table, that's probably already been given away. That's not something really of great value because a person probably was not a virgin when they met you. They've given away something to someone else or many other people, depending on how many partners they've had. So, how can it be of something of a unique value to me? So, you should always wonder and ask that question, like Alexander said. And that lets you know that even for him, he was not appreciated. He was being mutinied by his own men who he's fought beside, who he's clothed, who he's taken in, he's rewarded, he's let them loot, he's let them do all these things. They benefited and they still were not happy. So as a leader, as a person who is dedicated to getting to a place there, you always have to look at a mutiny is going to happen within your set. There's always going to be people there who will still have a problem being given the rewards of being with you as a leader. They still will have a problem with it, even though they're showered in gold, even though you are bringing them a better quality of life that they can't produce on their own. And when you ask them, have you done more for me than I have done for you? The generalities start to shade over the lack of value they bring. So, and again, you have to ask that question constantly. And I think the reason why a hard question is asked because it really brings forth the truth of the lie that you're living. It's a true statement as can be. And I think what happens is when people have that conversation, a person now has a new challenge in front of them. They have to now decide on whether they're going to bring a value or keep on living the lie. And lies always catch up to you, folks. It does. One of the bigger things about lies is that you're always going to see eventually someone who has a real value come by. For instance, you see a lot of men sometimes, they're with the wives, they're not getting, you know, pleasure or anything else like that. The wife's tired, headaches. There's tons of videos out there like that. And the man decides that he needs to go somewhere else. Because again, someone else is willing to see the value where another person is not. Because the person brings real value. Am I saying that's right? No, I'm not. But again, it is something that you have to understand that that is in place along the way to see if you are dedicated to your journey. And you can't let that dissuade you because you're falling victim to the opinions of others. I've talked about that. I'm always going to give some form of leadership mentioning in the beginning because I want to make sure that people can hear and understand what everyone goes through in a leadership position. Male, female, doesn't matter. You're going to have this happen all the time. You cannot submit yourself to the will of people who are not dedicated to getting to the end or that line of success in the journey that you're taking. If you see the line of success, you have to be vigilant. You have to be almost a lunatic to get to that point in that line because most people will not, they won't have that vision. They don't have that want. They can't climb that mountain. The first thing they do is look at that mountain and say how far it is. They start to now break down the trek or how far, when can you go? They don't have a plan on how to get there. They don't really want to do it. And now you're just carrying that weight. And that's the issue. You cannot submit yourself to people who do not want to be successful. When I say that, I mean people who actually want to do the work to be successful. A lot of people want short-term outcomes with big results, and that's not how life works. Everybody wants quick. No one wants to build. Everyone wants the big score, but it doesn't last long, and usually quick scores, big scores that are quick, do not actually have favorable long-term outcomes. And they can't be replicated over time. That's why day trading is a very hard thing to do. It's a very hard thing to do. And again, you have to surround yourself with people who want to climb the mountain on the journey. Anytime you're creating a road or path success for you, you have to understand that it is a journey, a climb. And when you're doing it, not everyone wants to go. Do you know why? Because the mountain is tall and you can't see the peak. That's why. And automatically, does that mean you need to leave them? Does that mean you need to tell your wife to kick rock? No, it doesn't. You have to understand that not everyone can go on the journey with you. But what you cannot have is people who will stop you from taking the journey as you walk the trek. You cannot. I've told my wife a long time ago when we first dated, I said, your fear of not knowing how to do certain things that I've done and experienced in my life, and that's nothing wrong with my wife. It's just that, I'm 7 years older than her. I've done a lot more. I've been around the world a lot more. Your fear of the unknown cannot be the thing that keeps me at bay. You have to get out of the way and let me do what I'm going to go do in life. And you have to say that to a person because that shows them your conviction when you put your mind onto a journey. What it also does, it lets them know that you're a person that probably is going to be successful. You can't you can't just say that and be a person who quits. That's the responsibility of a person who is a leader. You can't just be a person that because it got hard, you quit. Now, I'm going to say that that can be manipulated. That can be that fact that you do that can be manipulated upon by people around you, and you have to know the difference between that. Because you're a person who does not quit, that does not mean when you decide something is no longer worth your time and value, that is not quitting. That is you simply trimming off dead weight. Quitting is every time you see it get hard on the journey to what you want to be successful with. You quit because you don't want to get up that morning. You don't want to get up early. You don't want to do your broadcast now. You don't want to fly and do what you got to do. You don't want to work overtime to achieve a certain financial goal. You want to go and smoke weed. You want to go hang out with the boys. You can't not go to the club Saturday night because you got to go out there and hang out. You need to let off steam, but you got to test on Monday. You're not willing to sacrifice for the things you know that you need to be successful for. I'll study on Sunday. So you're going to cram all day Sunday instead of preparing along the way when you know you pretty much need an A in this exam in order to pass this class. See what I mean? That's the part of quitting, the sacrifice you don't want to make. Oh, we going out to the club. There have been plenty of times where in college I had to study for a test, and there was a girl I liked that was going to a club, and I know if I went that night was going to be a good night for me, but I had to say no and lose out on that opportunity because I had a test coming on Monday. I'm a good nurse, but I wasn't always a good nursing student. I needed help. I needed to sacrifice and I needed to study. I couldn't always hang out with the crew and drink. And sometimes I would come in from studying and everybody would be already hung out and deciding who they're going to hook up with that night. And I said, I'm just going to go to sleep because there was no one left for me and I wasn't going to share. Shout out to E401, if you know what that means. So, again, that is what you have to do and understand about the path that you have in front of you. In order to have that path, you cannot just climb up a mountain willy nilly because you just are dedicated to get to the top. I'm gonna get to the top. How are you gonna do that? The signs of a person who can be successful. And again, remember, success is when you get to the top. Okay. It does not necessarily mean just because you are prepared that you're going to get to the top. One thing you should be aware of: if you do not make a plan, you don't have provisions, you don't think about how you're going to be successful, you don't put any effort into critical thinking, planning, understanding things that are happening in variables. As you climb up that mountain, as that altitude changes, as you get higher up, you're going to be faced with different components, such as the temperature will change, it will get colder. I'm at a point now in my business with the economy that, yes, I'm bringing in more monthly income, or my monthly income is staying consistent, but new sales are slowing down. So my sustainability in the business is not the same. That is because I'm climbing a different altitude. What used to be five, $6,000 a month, that used to be woo, big money. And now that scares me if I have that money coming in a month. As you climb higher on your journey to success up that mountain, what used to be a higher point will no longer be a higher point because you're already there and you're looking above, higher. So if you don't prepare for that journey, that anticipating that when you get up that mountain, the altitude is going to change and you don't bring oxygen, guess what? You're going to pass out at that point. That's where you fail. Again, failure is always on your back. I've always understood that whenever I've done anything, my potential at failing is always a half a second right behind me. So I don't look behind me. I'm always looking forward. I'm never looking backwards. I'm looking towards tomorrow. If I have failed, I look at that as an example on what not to do when I come up to the same choice again in future in life or something similar. But again, when you're making a plan to be successful, you got to make a plan. You have to be committed to achieving that outcome. And you got to understand your biggest distractions will be the things that pull closest to your heart. There'll be a father that you look up to, that you want support from, a mother that you want love from, a wife that you want to just want you to just feel, you want to feel that your wife just not worships you, but looks up to you like you're an amazing human being. I think women sometimes misconstrue the way a man wants a woman to look at him. They think if it's like you want us to worship you. We don't. We just want you to just look at us like we're amazing. Because when you look at me like I'm amazing, I feel amazing. I feel I can do anything. It empowers me. That's a beautiful thing to have, to strengthen a man in his resolve when he himself is sometimes not always strong internally. That's not always the case. And your children, you want your children to look up to you, to be proud of you. That's not always going to be there for you when you're making that journey up to the top of the mountain to be successful. And you have to understand that that is part of the test to see if you're dedicated to getting to the top. You will be alone. You will. That does not mean you will not have support. Loneliness is not an indication of not having support. Support will not come in the method or fashion that you desire it. Support will come as support should. The sooner you understand that, you won't look at your wife, your children, your parents, anybody else as not being supportive. You'll understand there are limitations that they have, that they can support you in different ways. They're not always going to live up to those expectations that you have, where your wife comes in and treats you like, you're a Chippendale. It's not going to happen. You have to have a overwhelming internal resolve to get to your top of the mountain because it is your mountain to climb. It is your success, not theirs. The reason being is you look at kings and queens like Queen Elizabeth of England, you look at the kings, King Edward or whatever else. How often do you hear about their spouses? That's facts right there. You don't hear about the spouses or who was Queen Elizabeth's husband, who was the king, or you don't hear about them because I mean, obviously, Prince or King Charles now had a father. He had a father, right? You don't hear about them because it wasn't their journey to be successful in the way the queen was. or kings or leaders. We know of their spouses, but the prominent name is the person whose mountain it was to climb to be successful. That's what I'm talking about. You cannot expect other people to participate on your journey to be successful. What you can anticipate is that they are going to do their damn best to keep you from climbing the journey the same way you would if they were successful. They're not going to do that. There are people who can be afraid of they cannot achieve it. That's why they cannot support you in that way, because it's not meant for them to get up to that mountain. Even in the Bible, it tells you that. I'm not going to get into the Bible because I know when I start talking about the Bible, people start running away. But there are many stories, even in Gilgamesh, ancient Mesopotamian tales, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X. They were the only ones that were shot. Jesus was the only one that was hung up there out of the crew. I mean, we know Peter was later crucified. But again, I'm just talking about when it came time for number one to go up there, one sacrifice was always made. And that is the person who is going to the mountaintop to be successful. You will never be remembered in history if you try to bring a group with you to be successful. It's only going to be a one person. You can't take people with you. The only thing you can do is become successful, and they can live off the benefit of your success. But the plaque only gets one name there, not a group. That's the point of there. So moving along, folks, in lighter news, in India, the country India, yes. And I do want people to understand when I say that this broadcast is meant to inspire. I always am going to give you leadership motivation because every day people are who are leaders. And I'm going to get back to the India story, but I want to hit on that note one last time. I have not always been supportive of my dad. I, as a child, did not understand the hardships a man would go through. I judged him as a child would judge an adult because I did not walk in those shoes. I've judged my mom the same way because I was a child. I didn't have a marriage. I wasn't with a woman for a longer time. I've been married longer than my parents have. That's not a gloat over them, but I understand now how hard it is to keep a marriage together. Any relationship. I understand how hard it is as a man to just want to stay in shape. The stress, being a father. You judge people sometimes with the eyes of the not of the person who's in the same position. I understood my mom, the reason why she stayed home because I was very sick as a child. I understood when my children get sick, the fears of a mother, why she prayed. I understood why my father didn't necessarily go, he didn't believe, he believed in more action. I believe in both. I act and get my kids to the doctor, and I also pray as well that, there is a divine spirit that can help keep them and push them through if the doctors fail. So I tend to act first and pray along the way. And I understand that, but each was doing what they drew power from. My father drew power from his actions, his ability to be decisive, his ability to achieve outcomes. My mother drew power from having faith. And there's nothing wrong with either of those methodologies. The problem is sometimes you don't understand each other because you feel that it's not effective because it's not just one way. And I'm thankful for that. But again, I've learned that, and sometimes my father may not feel like I've supported him, but again, I'm a child. I don't know what it's like to become a man until I become a man. And when I do, I'm still behind the eight ball because I haven't been a man as long as he has. A 22-year-old has not been an adult as long as a 42-year-old. True statement. So when you talk to younger people, you have to understand is that they are now an adult. There is a rites of passage that they want to learn and experience. Your advice should be, or counsel to your children, should be as a wise counsel is to a new king. You don't need to run the castle for them. You should just give them counsel that allows them to make choices and understand that they always have your wisdom at hand, even if they don't follow it. That's what mentors should be. So I hope that's enough game for everybody. And again, that is what I'm doing in my life. I'm learning that too, and I'm learning how to do that as a father as well. It's very different because with your kids, I tend to be a little bit more stricter with my kids, but I'm learning to mentor them and guide them a little bit better. And when they're adults, there is a part of you that still wants to hold on to their a kid, but they're not. They're just your kid. They're not a kid anymore. The world, a 25-year-old is met to the rest of the world as an adult. To you, it's your child. But you have to remember, you can destroy that relationship treating them like they're still a child when the world sees them as an adult. They've molted away the skin of being a youth, and now they're in the world as a man. And when you don't, or a woman, if you don't treat them as such, you're going to have them not hearing you. As a parent, your job is to make sure they hear you, and force doesn't always do that. Respect does. So again, folks, I'm going to go into this story now because we're going to lighten it up, and I hope that's help. I speak as a parent, I speak as a person, I speak as a husband, I speak as a father, and I hope these things are always here to help you because a lot of times people don't ever talk about the hard points in life. They don't talk about the things that are challenging. And while we do go to social media and podcasts and broadcasts to be somewhat entertained, we do want to be spoken to and where it reaches our heart. And I hope you see this broadcast or listen to this broadcast at least long enough to gain something from it, because I'm always trying to give you, these are the things I would teach my children. These are the things that if I had adult children, I would be telling them now. These are the things that I tell my adult nephews and nieces if I do get the chance to talk to them. I always am trying to impart wisdom upon them that will benefit them in life. I've always told my nephew, the main thing I can do to show you that I love you is give you knowledge. That's the one thing I can do in my age. I can't replace birthdays I missed. I can't replace days I did not see you. What I can do is give you knowledge beyond your wildest dreams for you to discard at any point. That is what I can offer you as an older man in the form of mentorship. I can give you every good or bad decision I've made for you to be prepared or forewarned against in life. That's what I can do as a mentor. He can take it or leave it. So, when folks, we're going to talk about India. Shout out to India, right? Could we give a shout out to India, right? If you don't know, folks, a little bit of education here. All right, cheetahs. Yes, actual cheetahs. Not cheetah from Thundercats, but cheetah. This animal was declared extinct. Did you know that cheetahs once lived in India? As of 1952, they became extinct, and now they've been reintroduced back into India. A cheetah was recently spotted roaming the wild in India for the first time over 7 decades. 7 decades. The sighting comes to the heels of a species reintroduction efforts spearheaded by the Indian government. The spotted cats once prowled the Indian subcontinent, but they were decimated by hunters and habitat loss, among other factors, and they were declared extinct in 1952. A recent plan was drawn up by the Indian government, stipulated to 10 to 12 cheetahs will be transported to India from Africa every year for at least 5 years. Did you know that? I think this is a wonderful thing that, you know, there's a part of the world that we don't hear about, and there's habitat loss, there's animals that have been hunted, birds. It's not just, lions and stuff like that, but even lions at one point roamed in America, not just mountain lions, actual lions. And it's good to see that these efforts are going about. Now, again, you have to understand that there's leopards also in India and tigers also in India, but they sometimes are in certain areas. They're not everywhere. But I have seen videos of leopards. I mean, they seem to be right in people's backyards. And a lot of times, leopards are taking dogs out of lawns in there. They're easy prey. They're just taking dogs and bringing them up. There's tons of videos you can YouTube and search about. With when you go to India, man, everybody's scared of tigers, but leopards are going straight up in yards and taking dogs. I mean, they can get almost into homes. It's scary. It's fascinating and scary, but me as a dog lover, a former doggy daddy, that breaks my heart to see that people are not aware that these leopards are just snatching dogs up, and it's not small dogs too. Though, if you have a small dog, a Chihuahua, or anything smaller than maybe a beagle, that's gone. By the time you turn around, the let me make sure I have the leopards then got your dog the out of here. It's over. Okay. They were, they're transferred over there. So again, if you do want to see cheetahs, you might want to take a ride out to India. They will be there. So we're talk about that. That's a good thing, folks. That's a really good thing that's happening. I'm going to keep more of the animal news up. We'll get to Pat Sajak in a minute. And other news too, folks. I mean, and again, this is for if you're out there, just something to talk to your kids about. There are new species discovered all the time. We talked yesterday about a new species that was discovered. The cat fox was discovered. That was in France. And today we have a new species of giant spider. I'm not sure a lot of people like spiders, but still, there's a new species of giant spider discovered hiding underground in Australia. All right. And the reason why I say this is that there is so much new discovery to be explored out into the world. One of the greatest things that I ever did for my family and for myself, it was such an enriching experience for me. I drove in an RV from California to New York to go see my brother. I had my two kids with me and my wife. My kids were very young, so they probably don't remember it. But driving across America was a much more enriching experience than it was flying across. I mean, I drove all in the upper states, so Iowa, Wyoming. I had never been to Wyoming. And I had been to Wyoming more than one time driving through Wyoming, and it was beautiful to see the landscape change. I think that's one of the biggest things that kind of kill us as Americans, are our understanding of the country as a whole, because we fly to places we don't drive through and see the actual different places that we see on TV. But any which way, let's get back to this story. And again, there are amazing things being discovered in the world. It's not just all doom and gloom. Um, Hiding underground, and this comes to us by this is by Aspen. I'm not going to say this last name because I don't, whatever. But I'm going to Flughof, Hoef. Hiding underground, only emerging at night. This is the same way with the cat fox. They're elusive animals, a creepy crawly creature in the woodlands of Australia, remain undetected. Not anymore. Researchers in Queensland set out to formally document a rare and giant spider and determine it was a new species. Okay, we scroll down up on. They named it Spider Eulopos dignitas, meaning the dignity or greatness that is intended to reflect the impressive size or nature of the giant spider. Look at this. Look at this spider here. Of course, people leave talking about animals now. Everybody leaves when we come to some educational stuff. I'll be back. Give me another hour and we'll talk about Sajak just whipping some ass, and then you all can come back for the dumb shit, right? Male Euopus dignitas spiders have a bright red coloring, long spindly legs, and almost a shiny body. The photos shared here. Folks, have you seen anything like this before? Look at that thing, man. You would think probably it's a tarantula, but it's a new species of spider. It's amazing. Look at the white up in there. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I in my lifetime and finding with this, this broadcast, with the podcast that we're doing, there are new discoveries being done all over the place. And again, I bring you the news so you don't have to listen. You can listen to me and I will bring you the news. And this is a great thing right here. This is another new species found. It has a really cryptic trapdoors, much like the what's that one spider, man? There's a spider out in Australia that's like, I think it's called a trapdoor spider, right? It has this little a webbing all around it. They create a false trapdoor, and as soon as something comes tingles, they lift the trapdoor and grab it and come back out, grab it down on the ground, right? They really cryptic, which means like it's hard to see or unknown trapdoors in these woodland habitats on the ground. So they're on the ground. So you're out in the outback, you might get a little bit more than what you bargained for out there. Most people wouldn't realize that they're there. So that's here, man. Show the animal circular, almost pipe-like burrow with a door made of silk and soil. Look at this thing right here. Look at that. The male of the species is what we call a honey red color. They're quite stunning. Yeah, look at that, man. That's a female one. The female's a little bit darker. Got that brown sugar. Look at that right there. That's pretty cool. The spiders are much larger than other trapdoor spider species. Look at that. The males grow to a length of just over an inch, but females can reach almost 2 inches in size. They did look bigger up here than they did. They use venom for their prey, and it's not harmful for humans. So, again, it might be a little painful because of their size, but it's not dangerous at all. So this is great. You're seeing a new type of spider here. I think that's a really cool thing here. Look at that. That's the male one. They look like a little candy, little red color, and the female is a little purplish. It's like cherry and grape, if you will. That's good stuff. Okay, so we got it. We're gonna get to more. Let's go to what happened here with the kids, man. What's going on with the youth nowadays, man? The youth, teens, parents, what's going on, man? That this is becoming such a norm now. We did cover the fight with the teens and queens tearing up the Chinese food place. We saw that before. But I mean, are the youth out of control? Is this a symptom of a lack of discipline? Is this something that is going to become more of a trend? Is it just because that times are hard? But we're going to look at this video here, folks. Look at this. Look at this. This is in a store, like a Target or it's a store. Yeah, one dude, one kid. Look at this right here, man. This is crazy. Minute and a half. Everybody's got their phones out, of course. This is the new thing now. One kid being fought, slammed down, and it's all these people and no one's helping. Look at the cowardice, man. This is it. One kid, no store people coming in. All these people fighting this one dude. This is assault here, folks. One kid here. I mean, what's amazing is the fact that this boy even held his ground. But there's all these kids here. Where are the people that work in the store? All this is happening, security, anything else like this. And you see this woman here, she's a shopper. This is what's going on in stores. Again, you send your children out into the world, and this is what they encounter for whatever reason. Look at this right here. And it stopped off, and the kid's being cornered now. That he held his ground. Oh, now he's still up in there. That's what we call sneaking. Look, all this right here. No one's helping. Now you see, here's my problem. You have adults all around here. That lady was sitting right there, and she's just letting this go. No adults are helping here. They're going right back at it, attacking this kid. No store people are here. No security. Where's mall security with this happening? Right? No adults here. No, there's not one man in the store. Right here. Sorry, you're not going to play a Chevrolet commercial, but buy a Chevy Silverado. They don't donate. They don't contribute to the show. We're not going to promote them. And this is it. In a string of violent San Francisco mall brawls. This is not the first thing happening. This is called one melee attack and stomping each other. There's one guy getting stomped out or trying to get attacked against a group of other people. Onlookers, people around with their phones out recording. So I'm gonna go on record and say this. This is something that I don't know. I'm gonna be a little I'm gonna be a little controversial in this statement. So one thing is when you're out, when I was younger, we used to go out in groups. For this kid seems like he was out alone. I'm going to presume he was out alone in the mall shopping. There are tons of adults here. They're not getting involved. There's no more adults that you can look to for leadership. There's no one saying, hey, knock it off, stop it. There's no more men getting involved when a teen is getting attacked. It's still a child for whatever reason. And I understand sometimes you fear for your own safety, but this is a child still. Kids fighting other kids. And the point is, there are a lot of adults around here, and he can't be helped. He won't be helped. For the young man that got attacked for whatever reason, and look right here. Look, it says right here. This is Stonestown Galleria Mall from the 15th of March to the 17th. This is just a few days ago. Group of juveniles attacking each other or bystanders. So that means you can get it too. It don't even matter. On Friday, several youths were pepper sprayed by other youth. They're just, they dispersed from the areas once officers came. They discovered one youth suffering injuries as a result, treated in a hospital for non-threatening life injuries. But again, this is one kid being attacked. Look at this. Just it's not a group of teens. It's one kid being attacked here. This is someone's son. Someone's son here. And this is the thing I'm going to say about this, because I have children. If this kid knows who did this to him, outside of identifying them, all the people who decided that this was a recordable event and didn't try to help this boy who could have been severely hurt, you should go after them one by one. Find them where they are when they least expect it and light them up. Not I'm not inciting any violence, but you should get them all back one by one, list by list by that. So I'm a very believe in vengeance kind of person. I am. I'm so much. I always say I'll ask God for forgiveness, but I'm not leaving up for him to give me justice. I'm not. And this is not a brawl. This is an attack. I don't know what Fox News thinks about a fight, but this is when you have 10 on one sneaking a kid, what we call sneaking or a sucker punch. This is one kid getting beat up by a group of other kids. This is not a fair fight. This is somebody being jumped. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With over here, I can just see. And then this one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 to 7 kids jumping one kid who can't be but 5'2", 5'3", being jumped by. They don't even have the heart to go one-on-one with him. It's just one kid getting a hit in and the rest going afterwards when he's down. It's one of the reasons why I believe in studying Krav Maga, because it does teach you how to fight massive amounts of um, attackers. And again, how sorry are these kids that literally all of these kids and this guy's still on his feet? Salute to this young man. This video would make me proud of my son as a warrior, because for one, even with this, he stood his ground to a group of spineless attackers that could not get the job done with 6 of them. Couldn't even get him to the ground. Even when he slammed, he managed to get up. They could barely take this boy out. And he still was standing on his feet. That boy's got tiger blood in his veins. And again, it doesn't even matter and again, you take the abilities for regular citizens to arm themselves to fight this kind of cowardice, this kind of attack that's happening. And if people were back in the old days where they would tear these little kids up or yank them by their hair and pull them down, if you had a group of men going in here and breaking this up, the kids would be less likely to do this kind of stuff. But again, you tie people's hands up, you make them not responsible, and all the kids are filming should be arrested too. Once you start arresting the people with their phones out, I think you'll have change of culture, because everybody's looking to film. No one's looking to help. And again, here we go. Defund the police. Remember that, folks, especially in San Francisco. Defund the police. We don't need them. Now they're saying, let's go here. Supervisor Joel Engardio told the station that city is 500 officers below where it should be for a city of its size. We need police officers to walk the beat, be on the street, be at shopping center like Stonestown. Why don't the stores have private security? We don't have that luxury right now because we have few police officers. Well, now we're seeing the effects of defund the police. Again, you have these groups out here telling you do not need police officers, you don't need protection, you don't need this. But again, there is an element out here that needs to be dealt with. And this is only going to get worse. What if it's you with your daughter walking by and a group of these thugs, hoodlums, degenerates decide they want to wolf whistle at your little daughter, who may still be who may be young, but too young for even that kind of interaction? Or if she's there with her friends and then she doesn't like what's happening and these groups of people with the girls attached decide to attack her. And again, what happens is one of these kids gets dealt with by the police. Then you have riots and everything else tearing up. But again, this behavior, if this were one of my kids, I'd be looking for him. If this was my son and one of these people out here that got caught on and I can recognize being my son, believe me, I'd have CPS at my door after this day. Trust me. And that's the problem. Parents ain't dealing with this kind of behavior here. I don't know, man. But I'm going to say that my travels through San Francisco every month for the years that I've been traveling back and forth, What I'm seeing is not a better society over there with all their liberal policies. I don't see a better society being formed. I don't. I don't see it one bit. I don't see the protection of the citizens. They're in San Francisco when you're driving by a city where City Hall is and where the symposium is, where they do all the arts and the orchestras and the classical music place. There's a place right there in the left hand corner when you're going down over by near going towards Van Ness, because I travel there all the time. Right in the heart of San Francisco. When you look up the side streets, there are tons of homeless people all on the side streets. Right before you get to Van Ness, if you look up any one of those streets, you'll see tons, rows of homeless tents being put up everywhere. Just rows and rows. You don't see them on the main streets. They push them all to the side streets. So you won't see where the main tourist is, but what you do see is what people look like. They're walking and they're not even here. I see people all the time, not just homeless, looking like they're spun out. You know what spun out means? They're on something. And I've been there when they were doing the riots, tearing up everything. I saw the Tesla place torn up, burnt down. They burned down the cars in there. They tore up the windows. Everything was boarded up. I think that's Broad Street, I want to say. The main street that you go through to get to Van Ness before you get to the Golden Gate Bridge. I travel that monthly. I actually took some video a long time ago when the destruction after all the riots and everything that happened with the protests tearing up the city, all the businesses that were boarded up, the Ruth Chris that's no longer there. Right on, bro. I think that is Broad Street. And again, they're tearing up the city and they're talking about defund the police. And now you have teens just going tearing up a person in the mall. And again, this could have gone much worse. And again, you have to think about your children, your daughters, your sons being out in areas like this. But again, I don't see the benefits of these policies that they're doing that are making it better when I see a whole bunch of teens fighting in the malls. That was something rare for me growing up. In other news, folks, we're going to talk about man, I swear, this is the third, I believe this is the second or third broadcast that I've done about these feral pigs now. We've talked about these super hogs that are coming in down from Canada. I mean, this is again, and that again, I love how these people write these articles. Perfect feral hogs are casually destroying the country. No one can stop them. Look at this. Yo, this is crazy. This hog looks happy as hell right now. Does it not? Does this hog not look like it's taking a picture like, yo, I mean, seriously? This is I mean, really,
You serious?
Absolutely, I actually am. This right here is a golden picture. This hog right here looks like this hog is like, yo, I'm so happy to be here. I don't know what to do with myself, but I'm gonna tear right now. That's what I'm gonna do. Oh my goodness gracious. Now remember, folks, when I broke this story about these super hogs that are coming down from Canada, these super hogs, super pigs that they talked about, the ones that can burrow underground, they mess around, they can hide from infrared cameras. We talked about, again, I said this before that I do believe in a black business model, business idea 101. And again, with all the people out there who loved, being a Second Amendment holders, I do too as well. There should be a task force in every state and every county that has put together a militia, a feral hog militia that is put together to deal with this invasion. I do believe there should be some franchising businesses. And again, I probably am giving away a business idea that could be $1 billion industry, a franchise business of mercenary feral hog hunters. This should be something. And again, I wish more black people would listen to my podcast because I'm just giving out business game. First of all, you can own guns. Second of all, you can shoot. Third of all, you can get paid to do it all, right? Thuggish, hoodish people stay strapped, and all your job is to go around and eradicate feral hogs. who actually will give you just as much of a fight as people in your inner cities. Just as much. Look at these tusks. They're sharp as a razor. And we still have more devastation being happening. Look, programs to reduce feral hog populations haven't made a dent in the destruction brought by the animals. This article is not an old article. I just got this article. This was just yesterday, Tuesday, March 21st, provided by Tim Newcomb. The hunt is on the way to efficiently reduce the populations of feral hog. I do believe hog meat is actually quite tasty. I've never had it before, but I hear that Texans or places where they do kill them, a lot of times the meat is used to they eat the meat. The rise of feral hogs has been a steady process with inbreeding of various species of swine, my brother. Calling it whatever you want, feral hogs, wild swine, or anything similar, the underlying meaning is the same: the unencumbered destruction. The persistent wild pig problem isn't showing any signs of slowing. Now, again, this will get to a point where your children are attacked or animals are attacked by these ones. They don't care. They will dig up your crops. They will cause massive damages. There are tons of videos out there about wild hogs just tearing up. They devastate crops every year. $2.5 billion damages every year. And again, why are black businesses not? This is a great business to do. A franchise business like McDonald's, right? Where you have armed forces to go out there and their job is 365 days, 24/7 out there. They're designed to go and eradicate feral hogs. It's a $2.5 billion damage that they're causing. That's the amount of money that you could save. And I would say if they're causing the damage, then that's the industry. It's $1 billion industry to save. I mean, just think about that. You have a black business that's owned. They have gun training. They're armed. You could get all the thugs and get them paid. Protect the block. The block is a whole county. And the enemy, the ops, are feral pigs. I mean, it's beautiful. Take something destructive and make it constructive. Give them the business. And you could have this could be gangs that are rival gangs that actually compete with one each other for government grants. Why not? Any which way, it's a dream. I'm just saying that this could help out and create a whole industry. It's $1 billion damage that they're doing. This is $1 billion industry that you can save. Look at that. If you wanted to create the perfect invasive species, one that pretty much could live anywhere, could eat anything, had a high, very reproductive rate, which means they make more babies, and was extremely destructive. No, we're not talking about black people here. It was very difficult to control. Again, we're not talking about black people here. You would have to look no further than the wild pig. Shots fired, folks. John Jack Mayer, technical program manager at the Federal Savannah River National Laboratory in South Carolina. Woo, say that fast. And noted authority on feral swine tells Wired. They can live just about anywhere from frozen Canadian prairie provinces down to the hot, humid deserts of the American Southwest and all parts in between. They're the ultimate survivor. So again, why are we not asking brothers to come and take these things out? Listen, anybody comment in the chat, comment on any one of the ones. Can I get a group of people together to form can we create something, a business model behind this? I mean, seriously, I'm all for it. I think we should create a business model behind feral hog hunting, an actual business, helicopters, get some government grants going. I'm going to need some people to get together on this one. I really am. I think this really can be a good business model for us all. You know, as a people, this is an economic opportunity to create more businesses, write-offs. Think about it. All the guns you can buy are now a tax write-off. All the bullets are a tax write-off. Blacks can become protectors for crops. We can be a $2.5 billion industry protection. It's beautiful. And again, where are the people saying that I'm giving out? How many times on this podcast have I given out business game? Perfect business now. We have hair, we got weaves, we got nails, we've got lashes, we've got all this other stuff, but we do not have anyone interested in taking out actually a more invasive and devastating species than anything else. Okay, man. And our next story, this one's going to be a little bit more sensitive here, folks. I hope my kids are not watching, but hey, the show must go on. Anti-prawn bills, or you can read that here. We say that a little bit reverse for the YouTube algorithm. And 8 states could force device makers to censor sexual material. Look at that, right? That is a thumb there, folks. That is a thumb. I put that up there so people would probably see. 8 states, this come from Ben Gogan. 8 states are weighing an anti-pornography bill that would force phone and tablet manufacturers like Apple and Samsung to automatically enable filters that censor nude and actually explicit content. The only way to disable the filters, according to the bills introduced this year, would be through passcodes. Providing such a passcode to a child would be forbidden except done with a parent. Specifically, the bill says that phone filters, this could be a good thing, must prevent children from downloading actually explicit content via mobile data networks, applications owned and controlled by the manufacturer, or wired or wireless internet networks. I think this actually could be a good thing. I mean, it could be a good thing. Many device manufacturers already have adult content filters available for use, though it's not the norm to have them turned on by default. Many phone makers, for instance, allow parents to easily enable filters on web browsers that prevent children from navigating to websites that known to host pornography. And again, I will tell you as a parent, this is something you have to be even more vigilant about. I have been on Hulu thinking in the kids section, and I've seen things that I would not show my children. And my wife and I kind of like, we were like, oh, hey, what's this? You have to be really careful because what you think is, I do believe even YouTube Kids has an issue with this now where they're having like action figures do inappropriate stuff. But because it's action figures, the content is explicit, although what's shown, the actions shown are explicit, and you have to watch your kids if they have YouTube Kids. It's for parents out there. Even if you're babysitting somebody, you got to watch out. YouTube Kids is not a blanket of just safe content. There are kids now doing stuff where they experiment, they're doing, sexual innuendo things with dolls and action figures. And it's not appropriate for children. So obviously it's going to be for there. But again, I think that the problem I have with cell phones is that there's really not a place where you can learn how to really operate your phone. The phone doesn't come with a like guidance into how to master your phone. So a lot of like parents or even grandparents, they're not. I found it kind of hard to know how to like, block content or things like that with tablets and devices. It's almost like you need some kind of tech orientation when you buy this stuff, and I think it's done by design. And that's one of the things. This is something serious, and when you're a parent, you got to be really vigilant. I'm just saying, like, what I do with my kids, and I'll tell you guys this, I think this is somewhat helpful, is you need to tell your children to let you know what they're watching before they watch it. I teach my kids to, they say, hey, can I play with my tablet? I say, yeah, what are you going to be playing? And they tell me what they're playing. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I want to know what they're playing or what they're watching when they're watching stuff on their tablet. It doesn't mean you need to do it for every instance, but you just kind of need to get in the habit of having them tell you what they're watching when they are going to be on their tablet or what they're going to be playing. Because if you don't, you're going to find that your kids will come across something. And a lot of times kids don't know what they don't know, meaning when they come across it, they don't necessarily know this isn't something they should not be looking at. For instance, a lot of times my kids they're starting to watch a little bit more older programs right now. So, stuff like Hunter x Hunter, which is an anime, it's not like little kitty cartoons, but they do have cartoon like ratings, which my wife didn't even know about when we first, our kids started watching stuff. I was like, hey, this is, Y7. And she was like, what does that mean? I was like, well, that means U7. That means if they're 3, they shouldn't be watching. It's a little bit more suggestive. And she was like, oh, I didn't even know that. I was like, yeah, it's not just PG-13. They actually have cartoon shows or kid shows that are rated like 7, 13 and above. Youth just Y or like for all youth can watch it. But you got to really pay attention to that as a parent. It's even more, you got to pay attention to it when they're on tablets or even cell phones, because once you have internet access, there's really not a restriction that, even on pornography sites. And I don't know this from personal experience, but I do believe you have to check, yes, if you are 18. I have no knowledge, but I was told that that you have to check yes. So some states are doing this. This year, Florida, South Carolina, Maryland, Tennessee, Iowa, Idaho, Texas, and Montana lawmakers are considering versions of the bill, with Montana and Idaho's versions being the furthest along the process. So, this is something that could come because exploitation for children is something, that we've seen with the what is that, the Balenciaga stuff, man. You don't know, man, but there's a lot of stuff that kids are seeing that they should not be seeing, and it really is there. And the thing about it is that before you even consider that it's always on the screen or a tablet, the biggest place that your kids are going to see it from is their peers, man. Not every kid is told the same thing about, Christmas, Santa Claus, things like that. A lot of other kids, man, sometimes their parents curse around them. There's no like moderation, and like me, I do it when I get upset, so I try not to be upset, which doesn't help. But it's like a lot of times, like my wife just told me earlier today, she's like, one of my middle son, Philip, he came to my wife and said, hey, I figured out that bad word that starts with the F, the word, and my wife was like, "What are you talking about?" And like he spelled it out, and which is fine, I get it. And my wife asked him, "How did he know what the word was?" And he had not known what the word was because a lot of times we're watching stuff, even like The Sandlot had a curse in it. The Sandlot, the baseball movie, Sandlot, old school baseball movie, had like one serious curse word in there, and it was like, wow, okay, the kids heard it. Again, they didn't know what they didn't know, so they didn't know it was a curse word, and we just say, "Hey, we don't want to pick up bad words." And of course, my son's like, "Where? What bad word? What is it?" And we're like, "We're not repeating it because then you'll know what the bad word is." So just know that in one of the words in the last three sentences said, if you say one of those words, it could be but guess what? You're gonna get your behind torn up if that's the case. You know what I mean? So, um, that was one of the things that we said to them. And my son's like, he wants to know what the word is. He's like, and you got to see his face when we see it, like, hey, that's a bad word, don't say it. He's like, what word is it? Tell me, how do you spell it? It's just it's like we don't want to even go down the rabbit hole. It's kind of funny when you see him saying it, because every child's there. My daughter's just quiet, she's probably committing it to memory. uh she doesn't say anything. She's like, oh, okay, cool. Just what did they just say? The last I could see her, and her wheels are spinning in their head. My son, he's just, what is it, Dad? What is it? What's the word? Tell me how to spell it. What, can you rewind it so I can see it again? I'm like, no, boy, just keep watching the show. Jeez, he kills me sometimes. But any which way, he figured it out, and we had somebody figure it out. And it's like one of his classmates said it in class. And this is an Indian kid from one of my neighbors. I'm like, and the teacher had to pull the kid out and like talk to the kid. And again, I don't think that a lot of times kids don't know what they don't know. So sometimes parents, we could come off and like just kind of brutalize the kids about it, and instill overwhelming fear instead of kind of teaching them like, hey, that's not a good word. That's not something that you say. And he heard a classmate say it, and now we can't control it. So us trying to limit material via phones and media or screen time, as much as you could do a great job, he's only in second grade and he already heard it. It's already there. He already knows how to spell it. He already knows how it's pronounced. He's smart enough to figure it out, and now it's in his lexicon. We can't change it now. And that's where I told my wife when we were starting to kind of open up the borders of what content was. Like I told him, I said, the kids watch Bible stories on Sunday, and hell is a word. They say hell a lot because they're referring to hell. And then when he's watching some animes, people say, what in the hell? Or who the hell are you? And my wife had a problem with it. And I said, well, the terminology doesn't take away the word itself. Hell is still a word. Who the hell are you? The hell, what the hell? Go to hell. There's still hell being said. So you can't say one thing is acceptable where it's not. Now, more adult curse words where they don't have a place for common society. Those are words that we try to steer clear from. But he found the word from a classmate. And it wasn't just him, it was another classmate that said that word. And you got to feel bad because a lot of times you want to go to the parent. And again, you don't necessarily know if the child heard it from the parent. And it's got to be embarrassing for a parent to come to hear that their child said that word. And the first thing we want to do is punish our kids. But I think a conversation needs to be had because, again, we don't know the kids don't know what they don't know, and they don't know things are not wrong until they're told or educated on what's wrong. They don't always know. So this is something that's coming, folks, and you know, just putting on a filter does not mean that you do not need to check. Trust but verify. That's my last thing I'll say is that I don't, and I tell my wife all the time, you need to keep a mindful eye on what they're doing and just don't let them go. They're not adults. Don't assume because your children know how to operate that you start giving them complete independence. Independence is your ability to do something without me front watching you, but know that I'm still checking. Okay. They need supervision. And I think people use independence too heavily when they're saying children need independence. They need supervision until they get out of the house. An 18-year-old does not know how to make life decisions the same way a 28-year-old does, just chronologically. I'm not going to say that that's a blanket statement and that's probably not right in all forms, but guess what? They're not going to know how to do a lot of things on average as opposed to a 28-year-old, and that's a fact. So, folks, again, speaking of bad adult behavior, good God Almighty, what is happening with Pat Sajak? Pat Sajak from Wheel of Fortune, folks. He tackles, and in a bizarre moment, I mean, I don't know, man. Is he going out of his mind? Here's the photo here, folks. What is happening with Pat Sajak? Attacks another man. This looks like it's real. He goes up behind this guy and attacks him. This is an attack in a bizarre moment that has fans puzzled. So people didn't know what was going on. It makes you want to go back and watch Wheel of Fortune. Longtime Wheel of Fortune. I believe the show comes on, what does it come on? ABC or NBC? One of the daytime television shows. I believe Wheel of Fortune comes on the nighttime right before or after Jeopardy. That was usually the lineup because morning times is usually reserved for it used to be So You Think You're a Millionaire, and then it used to also, what is that? Deal or No Deal. And then what's the other one? Price is Right. That's usually your morning time shows. And then at night, you always had Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. And Wheel of Fortune has been a long running show since I was a kid. I'm 42. Wheel of Fortune host Pat Sajak, who's been hosting the show for decades now. During Tuesday's episode, is this yesterday? Okay, yeah, this is Tuesday's episode, just yesterday, I believe. A game show player named Fred revealed he's a man of many talents, which included being a drama teacher, bar trivia host, and a professional wrestler. He also meant that he gets paid very little to participate in the sport. He wrestles for fun. I guess he was successful. Wheel of Fortune showcased the players' successful puzzle wins for the night in their official YouTube channel during their Hawaii themed show. I mean, obviously he's wearing a Hawaiian shirt here. Maybe Pat didn't like it. Sajak made some snarky remarks after Fred's win, calling him a brute. So, I mean, again, he's just player hating. I mean, we don't know. Just because he's a professional wrestler, you want me to body slam him for you? The game show host ask other players. I mean, that's a little bit. I'm like, yo, Pat, and I would imagine at that point, the gentleman Fred here, who's getting choked behind by Pat, was there some behind the scenes thing going with their words exchanged before? Like the guy came up and he was a little too what do we call it? Familiar. The words of Charlie Murphy, the late Charlie Murphy, my man was being, why did Charlie say, yo, my man was being a little, familiar. He was a line stepper, habitually, and he habitual line stepper, you know what I mean? And I had to habitually keep with his, you know what I mean? Speaking of Rick James, late Rick James, and the players responded to yes to Sajak's question. So the players, I mean, if this is a police investigation, I would say that the other players are implicit in this assault, another assault happening. Once Fred made it to the bonus round, he guessed the puzzle and 3 attempts for the phrase category. If anyone doesn't know that you have to answer the phrase there to win the bonus round, his mind is wondering was the phrase. And I guess he won the bonus round, and the host announced that he was taking home $75,800. The player appeared emotional, which is major Wheel of Fortune win. This is Fred here, just figuring that out. He flexed his muscles excitedly, then proceeded to hug his father. Man wanted to hug his father. He put his hands over his head in shock and let out a big exhale while he basked in the glory. Suddenly, Sajak ran over to the player and tackled him. He attempted to bend his arm behind his back and grab his face while the other arm while putting him somewhere in a headlock. I mean, seriously? Did Pat have a filter on his device? Is he in one of these states where pornography is being disabled or filtered on a device and Pat couldn't open it? I mean, is this what happening? Look, fans quick to react to the bizarre moment with the game show winner and the host Sajak. Not only another perfect game, but another showdown with Pat versus another contestant. Another fan questioned what was with Pat at the end. Don't fall, Pat. Others seem alarmed by the game show host's wrestling moves. I would never wrestle a contestant like Sajak was doing if I was a host of Wheel of Fortune. I do handshakes literally. I mean, what in the world is going on with Pat Sajak? I mean, this is crazy. Coming up behind him and grabbing him like this. What does he think? Is this evidence of Manchurian candidate stuff going on? Is this a psyops thing? Is that Pat Sajak's programming going wild for attacking this man, or was it staged to get some ratings? Am I helping right now? Who knows? But again, I mean, it's kind of bizarre that Pat would do something like this. Has he been fired or put on some kind of leave? Let's go to the comments on this. It's a Pat hilarious moment. It was all in good fun. Okay, so it was fun. Pat was doing this fake wrestling. So I guess they might have had this planned up in ahead. I don't know, but I still would try to sue him. I would go out to Pat. I'd be like, I didn't consent to this. Even if it was not pre-planned, it sounded like a hilarious thing to do. Somebody can't spell here, but I hope the guy does not sue him. I would. They're soft these days. Yo, Pat Sajak, listen, this is the problem with this right here. Ed to head. A grown man comes up behind you. Pat, you only know Pat from the show. Pat don't know you. Like him and Fred go way back. I don't know, but maybe they do. And Pat comes up to put a wrestling moves on you on national television, embarrassing you pretty much. Pat would never do that to a woman. So why is he doing it to a man thinking it's all fun? Suppose the guy was like automatically flip Pat on his head, from the wrestling move and flip Pat on his head and hurt Pat, doing that move. Who would be wrong in that situation? Like, you don't play around with another man this way. And again, this man he's in his glory, and Pat comes over and does this to him on national television without this man's consent. So even if he was doing it in fun, how is this not assault by definition? Unless the man gave consent. But again, maybe it's okay. I would just say, yeah, man. I mean, if it was cool, if I was getting paid extra, I mean, maybe behind the scenes, but to walk up here and just steal on me, like, you know what I'm saying? But okay, that's fine. He made the news. He got a little bit more fame. I'm talking about him. But again, I mean, if he didn't know, man, this could have went left, man, real easily. You know what I mean? Like, you did that to me, man. I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, it's fun until someone gets hurt. It's cool if you're having fun. But if he didn't know it was coming or it wasn't staged, I mean, Pat could have got thudded out, man. It could have got real bad for somebody. You know what I mean? And like, even in this grab here doing it, man, you could snap somebody's arm this way. You could snap a shoulder, an elbow, and it just puts you in kind of lawsuit, man. Unless it was staged and it was known, you knew about it ahead of time. I mean, that's the only way that this would make sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too sensitive about it, but I even tell my kids, I was like, you don't come around scaring me, man. I don't do all of that. Like, you gonna jump scare me, man. I'll kick you right in the face, man. I tell my kids that, like, don't play with me that, man. My wife loves doing that with the kids and they like doing it. I tell them, I was like, look, I ain't the one to do it, man. I'm the only black person in the house. Got black parents in the house. I don't do scaring me. Like, you get hit. You know what I mean? So, because I don't go around scaring people. I don't like doing that because you don't know what'll happen. You know what I mean? You don't know how people react to being jump scared. And I, I tell my kids, it's like, you do it, man. You get kicked in the chest, man. That's not on me, fam. That's on you. So I don't play with people like that. You know what I mean? Now, I will play with you if I know we're engaging in play and I have your consent, meaning like, yo, if me and another dude are going to wrestle, we understand that we're wrestling and it's for fun. And he's engaging with me like, yep, let's wrestle and we're going to wrestle. But this right here, doing that, I mean, yeah, you're going to take it in there like, I don't know, man. Pat could have hurt the dude and the dude could have hurt Pat. You know what I mean? But I mean, I'd be sitting there being like, "Oh man, he twisted my shoulder. I got a torn rotator cuff." He could have had a older wrestling injury that he was recovering from, and Pat didn't know. You know what I mean? I'm just saying it's something you got to be careful with. Now, if it was staged and they plan all behind, salute to you all for putting this up and giving me some content to talk about. Salute to Fred and Pat Sajak because I appreciate it. This was great. But if you were going to do that to me, I would need to get paid. That would be part of my show appearance. So here we got it. Male athletes wins women's cycling race in NYC. So hold on. Oh gosh, this is the problem I have with this identity politics, identity naming stuff. So here we go. Okay. And this is written by Carolyn Downey. This is the problem now. So this is the thing. Okay. This is what I got a problem, women. Y'all are starting to turn on the trans people when you shouldn't be doing it. Don't be transphobic. I support the trans movement. I support trans athletes. Yeah, I'm trying, folks. I'm trying with this. We're gonna try to get through this one, folks. Do I support trans? Yes, I do. I support them in sports. I support trans athletes. I think they should just let the floodgates open. Women have said down with the patriarchy. They said men are pigs, we're misogynistic, and all that we do. And men have decided, at least some, let me not say that, males have decided that if you can beat them, join them. And they decided that I will now identify with whom has the power. And I support it because it's okay for women to say down with the patriarchy. But what you will get is the unintended outcomes that go along with decisions you made. I warn my wife of this all the time. Part of the responsibility of being a leader or making choices that you want change from is you've got to take all the outcomes that come with it, not just the ones that favor you. Yes, I'm for women having more rights. I don't believe a woman should not have the right to work. They can. But again, if you want to work, you got to take the consequences, good and bad, that come with working. Your job is hard. If you don't get paid very much, that's the world men compete in. All right. If you're overstressed and your hair falls out, I myself am bald. Again, that's the world you come and compete in. I, as a nurse, had to deal with Ebola when Ebola was coming to the United States and everyone was scared about it. That's the world I've chosen. That's the outcomes I'm going to have to deal with because I decided to be a nurse. It can't just be pay overtime and I'm a nurse. Look at me, goody two shoes. And now when I work in a hospital, all of a sudden I don't want to take care of Ebola patients. It's part of the job. That's what you have to do. So male athletes win this one. Let's go. And here's the problem I have. First thing off, a transgender identifying male. No, I'm sorry. Again, the female author, if they identify as a male, I'm sorry, a female, this should be considered a female. It's not a transgender identifying male. What the hell does that mean? The transgender identifying male means a trans female, correct? That this is a person who identifies as female. I have worked in the hospital and I've taken care of transgender patients who want to be called a woman. They were born as a biological man, and I respectively use their pronouns because that's the job and the place that I work at that says I have to call the patient by their names out of respect to dignity to the patient. I did it. Called her Dorothy, if that's her name. It's not her name, but I'm just saying call her Dorothy if she's Dorothy, even though she was born Dan. That's what I'm assigned to do. I did it. Didn't have one problem with it. And the person, they actually had gone full transition. So it was very interesting to clean a patient who had that. I was fascinated as a person who studied science, because I had never taken care of a person who had gone from that one and they had gone to the full transition. They had female body parts at the bottom. There was no Billy Bobo at the bottom. So for me, it was fascinating to be able to take care of a person and treat them like a human being, like a real respect them as a patient, but a person who had gone through the full transition. They had all the makings of what would be, you would presumably think as a female. But a lot of times, medical history, you do find out that information. But in this one right here, a transgender identifying male, that actually is a trans female. That should be, this is not respecting the pronouns. So again, you play the game, you sign up for the game, you have to play, even when it doesn't suit you. So I would dare say that this language is transphobic, in my personal opinion. See how it works, people? Yeah, exactly. Rules for thee, not for me, right? But now you got to follow the rules. Now you got to go along with it. You can't be wrong with it. I support it. Be in all the sports. I don't care if my daughter has to compete against it. Be in all of the sports, because all the women now that was saying, let's go along with all these rights, when it was just the G rights, the GAY rights, then everything got included afterwards. You can't pick and choose which group out of the group, the alphabet community group, you want to get all the benefits. It's the whole group. The HGTV group, the whole group gets it. All the channels on the HGTV group get all the benefits. It's not just one. That's what it is to support their rights. So again, how about supporting this one's? It's not a transgender identifying male. What the hell does that even mean? I've never even heard that before. This is a trans female. Respect the pronouns. Tiffany Whoa, here we go. Woo, boy. Okay, here we go. We'll finish this up, boy. Tiffany Thomas. And I do mean it. I support this. I support it. Lily Thomas, whatever, LaSalle, break all the records, break them all. Because again, if men are going to be the evil guys, I've said this before, and I told my father this. If men are going to be the males, are males, not men, because men wouldn't do this. Males would do this because there's men out there say, hey, I do identify with this. If males are going to do this, if males are the villain, if women feel like being under males' rule, they're going to be a slave, then again, if you feel that being under the authority of a man or male authority is going, if you feel that that's slavery for you, then you get all the benefits of what comes with the change that you want. So again, there are males who are finding out how to flip into the game. No problem. And I support them for doing it, because if the male patriarchy is so bad, then you should respect the ones that come over to your side to join your cause. Tiffany Thomas stood again, a transgender identifying male named Tiffany Thomas should be a trans female. See how the language doesn't work? Yahoo's letting this go by. How is this article? How is this person not cited for the mispronunciation, the misidentifying of a trans female? See how it works? See how it works? Stood atop of the winner's podium at Randall's Island Crit, a New York-based race, next to two women who scored. So here's the thing. It's two women who scored second and third, but it's a transgender identifying male. See how it goes? And I guarantee you what they will end up doing is saying that this somehow is a sub-patriarchy of the traditional male patriarchy. But this is supposed to be a trans female. She identifies as a female. So it's a female. According to the pronoun legend Bible that exists for people from the HGTV community, that this is what they have to be called. I tons of your pronouns are he, her, or she, him, or it, they. You got to go along with the pronouns. So again, Tiffany's a scientist. Holy shit. Tiffany's a scientist by day, athlete by night, Batman in the midnight, Batwoman during the twilight. Thomas's bio in LA Sweat. I'm joking. I'm saying that in jest. She has never met a barbell, a bike, or a dog she didn't like. She is incredibly. See, she. This is ABC 7 News reads, right? See that? But they said at the top, this is how the game starts to change. And again, women, you're going to have to decide what side you're going on. Because I'm going to say that this article, this first misgendering, seems like a transphobic thing. See how it doesn't work well? You got to go along with it. You can't pull it back now. But again, remember, male patriarchy, bad. Being under a man is bad. No problem. Here you go. Thomas' victory in the circuits was not an anomaly. The cyclist is placed in various competitions in recent years, costing women title. I'm sorry, you identify with a woman, you get to just be a woman. Willie Bobo and all, including the 2022 Bucks County Classic in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, where Thomas came in second. So just lost to either another trans female or a actual female, cis female. Let's play this game, because they're crucifying Jordan Peterson for all of this stuff. But here, this person can get by saying this transphobic thing, Mrs. What is this here? Carolyn Downey. See how it doesn't work? And this is the problem. You don't like it when they start taking away from you, correct? Tiffany Thomas, okay, a Twitter user claiming to be a female bike racer has criticized Thomas's obvious physical advantage in cycling. Well, guess what? That's what you voted for, folks. They only need to do a certain amount of treatment in order to be considered being able to the standard to play. That's it. And there are states that are banning this, and the states have their rights. They're making laws to ban whatever they think is there. But again, all the women that were supporting it, what you should do is clapping for Tiffany Thomas, Leah Thompson, whomever else is in there, the person that weightlifted. You should do that way, because when you set the game up, people are going to play the game. In the words of Doc Holliday, I'm your Huckleberry. That's just my game. And males are starting to figure it out. And salute to them. It won't be me. And but again, salute to them that are figuring it out. Because you know what? It's about time you got your just desserts. That's what I feel. So you got to support it. And again, one of the issues that happens with young women is they do not have children yet. It's okay when you're single and supporting it. It's a problem when you have children and now you can't support it, because now it affects your bottom line. See that? But we don't think about that on the front end. We now think about it when it costs us. It's no problem if you're going to take away from the patriarchy, but now the matriarchy is kind of going to go get it, because again, the patriarchy had the matriarchy along with it. That's what women don't understand. So what happens is you inadvertently have done away with your matriarchy by breaking down the patriarchy. Congratulations, women. You got what you wanted. We're going to continue on this article. You better believe it. While Thompson's teammates are all between the ages of 24 and 32, the account claimed this is from the woman cycler who would not name her name. The cowardice of you. Jordan Peterson went all the way out in the front and put his name in front. You got coward women who cannot say, if I stand up for it, I'm going to put my name out there. I'm supporting it. And again, why can't women support this then? Because again, when you say down with the patriarchy, when you say men are this, men are that, men are this, men are that, we all have to take it. We can't say anything. But now all of a sudden, when you now have to get stuff taken away from you, you go and hide your identity. So much for standing on something, huh? And call the female cyclist. Right, got it. Jordan Peterson has his name, his career, and hanging on the thread. And what you do, you'll hide behind anonymousness to say you don't support it. If you don't support it, don't support it then. Say your name, stand on it. But again, cowardice at work. And again, I want the rules that favor me, but I don't want the rules that are going to have to, they're not in my favor. And again, typical women fashion. Thomas is 46 years old, only started cycling at 40, right? 6 years. They appeared to have admitted to be a low-performing cyclist in the early races in the video posted by the account. At Thomas's first race, cyclists came out of 5th out of a field of 24 women in the beginners female division. Yes. Female athletes in sports ranging from skateboarding to powerlifting to swimming are increasingly dealing with male intrusion. I'm sorry. Big problem here with that word about male intrusion. What do you mean male intrusion? Not a male. It's identifying a trans female. That's what it is. And again, women should not be allowed to get away with this misgendering of people who identify as female. See how it works. Two female Canadian powerlifters recently told the national, okay, we can't get their names, can't get their names. And I love this because, again, it shows the bias that women have towards this when it now affects their bottom line. I love it. I think more men out there should be supporting this. We should be supporting this. Men should get behind the trans movement. You know why? Because, again, they're not going into male spaces, they're going into female spaces. Good, good. Two female Canadian powerlifters recently told the National Review that presiding body of their strength sport has completely ignored their concerns about males competing under. Well, you can't discriminate. This is discrimination. This change males to blacks, and it's discrimination. It's the same thing. See how it works? Why are you allowed to discriminate now with people who identify as female? They said they plan to take legal recourses against the Canadian Powerlifting Union. Why? Why are you again? I want to go to the comments. I love the comment section. This is a great one. Here we go. When biological females protest their shame, called the TERFs, bullied, threatened, females should refuse to compete and leave the fields empty. It would destroy entire programs at all levels. Then maybe someone would listen, right? Follow the money. Okay. For a while, there would be manly man's leagues and not so manly man's leagues. Okay, I guess so. Problem with female athletes pulling out countries still will be bullied and shamed by the woke crowd. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Didn't men go through this? Down with the patriarchy. I don't want no man to lead me. You're controlling. Well, aren't you doing the same thing? This is sad and wrong. I hope that guy feels good about his false wins. I'm sorry, Nathan. That's a trans female. Thank you. I love this shit. It's almost, oh man. Hey, and I don't care who has a problem with me supporting this. I support trans in sports. I support trans and female sports. I think it should be I think they should do it to the point where there's nothing but trans as females in sports. That's what I want to watch. I want to watch basketball, WNBA games with people doing dunk contests with real dunks. Yeah. Let's do something for the sport. Right? Here we go. Everybody's pushing for it. Hey, I like Chad. Salute to this guy here. I think he's going in the way that I want. Almost everybody's pushing for equality and proper pronouns these days. As I always say to my kids, you can't complain when you get what you wanted. Facts. There we go. Chad hit the nail on the head. This is what you all wanted. This is what you all got. There's no stopping the train now. And look, the door is open. That's it, folks. That's it. And I support it because I sat by with women saying that men are bad, men this, men that. Well, guess what? If you can identify as a female and play, then you should you should welcome them with golden arms because they're no longer males anymore. Remember? They're one of you. That's what it is, right? And again, I think that's the problem sometimes when women make choices thinking that independence is free. Freedom is not free. There are consequences. My father told me this a long time ago, and I understood it when he told me it. A decision has good and bad consequences. Any decision, bad or good, has good or bad consequences. There's a book that I once read. I read in my early 20s. It's called The Wisdom of the Huanazian Masters. If you read that book, you will find in there, even a good decision can be bad. A bad decision can be good in certain time periods. That was by ancient Chinese masters on leadership. In certain times, a good decision can be a bad decision. And in other times, a perfectly bad decision can actually be a good decision. And I'm going to say this was a good decision that turned out to have bad consequences for women. Okay, in our last story, folks, and thank you all for, I always forget to say this, folks. Donate to the show. If you've been entertained or enlightened or even laughed or chuckled a little bit, $ Ancestrylands, Venmo Ancestrylands, $ Ancestrylands on Cash App. Donate to the show, folks. Ancestrylands on Venmo. Donate to the show, folks. And again, I'm going to go ahead full tilt, like all the way. All the way. And I think for the men, I'm okay with men, male professional sports having steroids in them. I want them all juiced up. I want every game to be a home run that is, like in Giant Stadium, the baseball stadium. I want them hitting it out into the water. That's what I want. I want juiced up athletes, roided out, uh, bone shattering. Go all out. Go all out. Why not? They're doing it anyway. Let them do it. Let them just free flow, get it. Okay, so in our last story, for all the people who are educated, again, I always leave the most important things for the end. I'm going to start doing that because you know what I find out? The best information, people never ever stay around for it. They don't have the listening endurance, the mental fortitude for information. And I'm okay with it. Get out of here if that's the case. But for those who've stayed along, your tax dollars again are being exploited. Another undercover bailout. Here we go. Biden's DOJ is quietly trying to orchestrate taxpayer funded bailout of Moderna. Really? You don't say? I thought it was no bailouts. The Biden administration quietly inserted itself into a private patent infringement lawsuit between two biotech companies filed against the Novit vaccine maker Moderna. And experts say this could establish a dangerous precedent. In a surprising filing last month, U.S. Attorney David Weiss issued a statement of interest in a case on behalf of the DOD, and the HHS, Department of Human Health and Health and Human Services, invoking a rarely used 1900s law to argue the federal government should take any liability for patent infringement Moderna may be guilty of related to development of its COVID-19 vaccine. Woohoo! Okay. I'm not going to read all the flip laugh. The filing concluded the companies whose patents Moderna may have infringed, which I believe are Pfizer, J&J, maybe, development should be limited to pursuing claim against the federal government in a U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Oh, look at this. See this? Look at this article. Seriously? How is this guy not in jail? Oh, I'm going to tell you something about this, right? This is something about me in the hospital, right? When I got when the pandemic first started underway, and I worked in California hospitals, as you know, when I got the authorization for emergency use form that you had to sign for the COVID-19 vaccine, the first thing I did was asked my managers and supervisors at the time. I said, "You guys, this is basically me signing away my rights to sue anyone in the case that something goes terribly wrong." And I said, "How are you guys imposing this on us? And vaccines need to be tested for a long time." I asked nursing supervisors this, people, and I saw them and I said, "Yo, we're all bachelors of science. We're scientists. We're practicing people who practice evidence-based practicing. How are you going to sit here and tell me I should take this vaccine to keep my job when this is a new vaccine?" And I got from them an answer that I won't even tell you, but it's along the lines of the same thing of I'm just following orders. The same way Germany did during the time under a person who shall not be named. First letter starts with the H, last ends with the R. Sounds like Rensler, you know? And it was just, I'm just following orders. And right then I knew that there's something not there's a lack of integrity within the medical community. There's a big time lack of integrity. And then that later on to become when I saw news of Gavin Newsom and the chief of medicine or the state medicine chief, they're all in having dinner. This is during everybody's masked up, everyone's state law masked up, gotta wear state on the mask on the planes, all of this stuff. He was having dinner with the head medical person for the state, no mask on, having dinner. And I asked people who are still residing in California, how do you still vote for this guy? Then we saw him at the one of the games, right? It was a Lakers game or something like that, sitting there, no mask on still. And again, I saw that what's happening now is the aristocratic society that's starting to become more prevalent. They're starting to make sure that people go along with the information, not the common sense. And when they do things, they now can do it right in front of your eyes because no one's going to say anything because you have so many watchdogs in there. And it broke my heart when I was talking to my nursing leaders, people that I would trust with my own life. When I asked them about this form I had to sign, emergency authorization use, and I said basically this is saying that I have to take this and any problems I would have suffer later, the company is they're indemnified. They don't have any responsibility. If this kills me, they looked at me, was like, are you going to sign it or not? Lost a lot of respect for it in that days. I still took the vaccine. I did and got my booster. I sat there and made a choice for about a month on whether I was going to do it. And I when I say I did it, it's because I had my mission. Again, that mountain I talked about earlier. My goal is to work at the hospital till I'm 55. I'm 42, get out early retirement, stay in my business, and keep on building my wealth that way. Having built the business up to a point where now I'm getting my early retirement and I'm building out businesses from there. By that time, my kid should be full well working in the business in all its fashions. And again, this choice to get the shot, the jab, whatever you want to call it, that was a hurdle on my road to that destiny, that success level. If I was going to go or I was going to get out of here, go see the pearly gates, take that walk with death, I was prepared to do it because this was part of my mission. Things are going to come up. I work around patients. I've taken care of many patients with COVID-19. I've taken care of many. And I'm talking not about what we know now of it. I'm talking about when it was danger that everyone was scared. I went and flew every month when everyone was scared, terrified. My wife was terrified. She said, "You're still going to fly?" I said, "Baby, I've been taking care of patients with much worse that I've known is worse. And I still am alive. If I'm going to die, it's nothing anyone can do about it." Once I started this job, stuff like this was bound to come about. Ebola and other deadly diseases are going to be bound to come about. And I could have been exposed without even knowing it at this point. True statement. Before masks were mandated, I could have, in fact, taken care of a patient who didn't even know they had it. That's the risk of what it took for me to be on that journey. As a nurse, that's what you accept. And again, I'm committed to my success. I could die before I get there, but that's part of the journey. Moderna, which has received about 10 billion in taxpayer money to produce the Nova vaccine, that's right. They also are not responsible if anything happens to you, and the taxpayer money paid all these execs billions of dollars. And you see why we're in trillions of dollars of debt. It's all being funded by us, folks. And we're paying for it and being told we have no choice, but we're paying for it. Who's telling you all this? Are you guys getting this on other broadcasts? I mean, really? Is that okay? I got it. And has since earned billions in profits. So hold on. Well, we giving them 10 billion in taxpayer money. There's no return on that money. This is the thing I don't understand. And this is the problem I'm going to lead into about taxpayer money. When we're paying for stuff and they make a profit, why are they not paying us back? That's the big question I have about taxpayer money. Why is it a one-way give and then we get dictates on top of that? Because if we just pay for this, if they earn billions right here in profit selling it, where are we getting this money back? Then we should at least be getting 10 billion back with interest, correct? I mean, that's the question I want to ask the government. When you're using taxpayer money and things make a profit, they should be giving us that money back. Why is it free money for taxpayers and they can make billions, but they don't got to pay us back? I don't mind my taxpayer money being used to do this, but if you're gonna make billions off of us, we should at least be getting an ROI. Seems like we're being pimped. It was sued in early 2022 by the Genevant Science and Arbutus Farm Group, which accused Moderna of using technology they have patented in the vaccine. Right, the companies have asked the federal court in Delaware to award them damages on the infringement. What interests me was the fact that the government's very strange procedural, I call it a gimmick. This is Susan Brandon, a former chief judge of U.S. federal claims. I'm a former judge. People don't generally just pop up in the middle of a lawsuit unless they want to move to intervene or they have something at stake in the case that would make them be a party, which means that they're on the hook. They don't want to be part of the hook, huh? Look at that, huh? So coming in, trying to make sure here we go. Here we go. Look at this. The concepts that they wanted the HHA director to use the 1498 to go to a generic company. Go ahead and infringe this patent. Just pick a drug of some sort and don't worry, because when they sue you, they will come in and tell the federal judge that we're assuming responsibility and it should be adjudicated in a court of federal claims, which means that the legal costs for them being sued on this is coming out of taxpayer money to bail out Moderna. That's according to these papers. So again, folks, I think that would solve a lot of problems for us as a country. If we had more politicians that was saying, listen, this taxpayer money we're giving you, once you make a profit, you got to pay us back. We're going to give you the 10 billion, but once you make some billions, you owe us back 12. Like, the taxpayer money should not just be free for a private drug company to sit out there and make money off of us to enrich themselves. I don't mind the companies making billions, but they should be paying back the taxpayer because, again, we are pretty much an investor at that point. And that's not how it's done. America should be a business of selling itself, but we should be selling ourselves the taxpayers' money to bring back money for the taxpayers to enrich the citizens of the United States, thus making the country and the people in it more wealthy on a whole. But what's happening is we have only the people at the top getting rich. That's the part that frustrates me. So, folks, let's close it out today. All right. Happy Wednesday, folks. It is 4:31 on the East Coast. People are no doubt stuck in traffic. Next, if you're listening to this podcast, this broadcast, folks, I am so happy that you are. I'm going to continuously keep building because, one thing about this road up on the mountain is that the broadcast is part of my tool on the journey to the top. It's to show my knowledge, my expertise as I'm building a business and growing a business. It's showing the things that I've learned of knowledge that you can use. Practical knowledge, not stuff that I'm just doing or I've heard somewhere else. And these are things I'm doing in practice. Stuff that I'm actually performing and doing in life that I can show receipts and results from. We've talked quite a bit about new discoveries, and I like doing that because I myself is a person that loves nature, loves different aspects. I found that a lot of my family members, sometimes they want the show to be one thing, but this is more of this is my interest. It's an interest in a very broad amount of things, from the new discovery of the new spider, the new discovery of the cat fox, the cheetahs being reintroduced to India. I have Indian neighbors, and I would love to talk to them about cheetahs being introduced that they may not know. A lot of times I find that a black man is telling them about stuff in their country that they don't even know. And I'm not even from India. I love it. But that's what makes you more knowledgeable about the world, being knowledgeable about different things, not just one thing. So this isn't a TV show where it's the good times and we're just going to have one circular theme. We're having different topics like you would when you read the news, like a newspaper. That's what a broadcast is. This is live newspaper or news for you. The news has different topics they roll in a segment. I'm not going to spend all my day talking about Trump's indictment. There's enough about that. And not everybody wants to hear about it. I don't care. That's for the big wigs and all of that stuff to talk about going after each other. That's just, honestly, it's just babble at this point. I like to bring different concepts and different topics because these are things that would matter to the regular people in my neighborhood. This is interesting to see while we're being told about the bank bailouts or the bank runs, this stuff is happening right here with Moderna on the sly. See, I found the sly. That's the thing I love about my broadcast is that while everyone's talking about this other stuff, I'm finding out there's a bailout we're really paying for. $10 billion we went to Moderna. How much did we give to Pfizer? How much did Johnson & Johnson get if Moderna got $10 billion? Now you could see why the trillions of dollars are going up and we're getting told by bank runs. And realistically, this is the main thing that we should be talking about. The Moderna, the bailout we're giving by the federal court system or the federal government deciding to protect Moderna and the liability issues. Right? I mean, this is a real discovery right now that probably no one's covering. And again, you won't hear it a lot of different places. You won't. We talked about the attack in the San Francisco mall, these out of control teenagers, and the coward adults and people in the stores not doing anything about it. You need police. Why doesn't the kid should sue the store that he was in, he was being attacked in, for not providing adequate security. I think that the kid should already be looking towards that. And again, we talked about the super feral hog problem, super pig, that's still emerging. They're still talking about this. $2.5 billion in devastation. Black people, can we start building businesses for eradicating feral hogs? I'm dead serious. Businesses popping up everywhere for feral hog eradication. Get some grants, have the government fund it. You can get paid and be government employees. Create pension plans, businesses, everything else like that. I think it's a great business model. Big time. These are my thoughts, folks. Phil Davis, Ancestrylands, ancestrylands.com, Ancestrylands on Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter. We're everywhere. And I love saying that. We're everywhere. Ancestrylands, folks. Live with Uncle Phil, folks. I hope you are enlightened, entertained, and educated. Stay tuned for tomorrow's show, folks. I would love to have you back. We're going to talk about more. Take care. Have a great day. Get home safe. Take it easy, folks.